Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I am Rafe. It is great to have you here with me today on a glorious Tuesday, Podcast Tuesday, which is by definition a great day. You guys are great listeners. As you know, you have made us a global top 10% podcast. You can reach us at bufnagle.com. Share the love, share the buff, give us a 5-star review, hit subscribe or like or whatever smiley star thing you have on your podcast app to make the world know that you know that we know that we are doing the things for you that you need done. Tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode somewhere buried in the show notes. You will find a place to buy me a coffee. They will be fine, is what they told me. Don't worry. Well, I said, you can't just pile dirt around the base like that. The roots of the tree need air to breathe. Piling 2 feet of dirt against the base of the tree is going to kill it. Okay, they said, we'll pull it back. So they pulled back some dirt from the trees that they were supposed to be protecting during the building of the house. Those 3 trees now sit in tree wells carved out for them from the crafted landscape ground level that was built up around them. Each tree it's within a meter of the newly piled earth. I knew that wasn't far enough, but the workers were adamant in saying things would be fine. At least they thought they were being adamant. What they actually were was ignorant, in a sense that they just didn't know. No one had ever taught them, and my attempts failed. That first year, they were the last 3 trees to leaf out in the spring, but they produced much fruit, which was kind of sad for my wife as she dislikes the mess of the walnut flowers and the piles of walnuts that fell into the yard. But the squirrels, the chipmunks, and the birds that had made those trees part of their habitats, they were all happy. The squirrels and the chipmunks on the ground found plenty of nuts to haul off to places I would only find next spring when their seeds sprouted in the middle of my yard. That autumn, the leaves turned and fell early. And then winter came and went, and then spring again, and the late leafing out of the walnut trees followed again. Walnut trees, at least around here in central Indiana, are the last trees to get out of bed in the spring and the first to go back to bed in the autumn. But they work hard during their short summery months, and they generate oodles of those walnut flowers and then plenty of nuts to follow. Some people collect them and eat them. Some kids throw them at each other, fortunately, almost surely missing. Lots of people curse them as they and the flowers can stain the driveway and make the lawn uneven, or they can get ejected at high velocity from beneath the mower and do damage to the neighbor's windows. Let's just say that I maybe know someone to whom this has happened. Black walnut is Junglans nigra. That's the Latin name, the genus and species. The Junglandaceae family is a family of angiosperms. For more information on angiosperms, you can see a recent episode 294. It's a family of angiosperms known simply as walnuts. The junglans include over 60 species and include walnuts and pecans and the hickory. These trees produce a substance called junglone, which is apparently 5-hydroxy-1,4-naphthoquinone. I don't really know what that means, but that's what it is. It's a toxic chemical that hinders the growth of surrounding plants. It's like a force field around the trees. Well, this juglone is found in almost all parts of the plant. The kernel of the nut is actually edible. So that's kind of nice if you like walnuts. And then there's the wood. Walnut is rich, chocolatey brown with sometimes streaks of gray and purple. It typically has fine grain that is very straight and very workable. It is durable and fairly hard, but not so hard that it's difficult to work with. It can be used for all sorts of things like cabinets, tables, and other furniture. Also gun stocks, musical instruments, and millwork around your house. When we built our house, I was able to save the trunks from a few walnut trees that were on the property, but they were in the way. After having them milled up, they were turned into the mantle above the fireplace, a boot bench in the back hall, 2 window seats in the living room, and a lot of spare stock for my workshop. In the several years that have followed, the remaining walnut stock has become cutting boards, charcuterie boards, some benches that sit in our master closet, a side table here in my study, a crucifix at the rectory at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, where our big brain smarthead friend, Father Elliot Zach, works, and the pegs that I'm using in my latest furniture project, and much, much more. When it comes to working with walnut, everything they say about it is true. It is straight and true and well-behaved, resisting warping and movement. It is easy to cut and carve and sand and shape. It finishes beautifully with just oil and wax. It is a joy to use walnut in the shop. That being said, the juglone is in the wood even after the milling and drying, so that the sawdust that's produced in the shop can be toxic and make people sick. So a mask is definitely needed when doing any work that causes dust, namely sawing and sanding, but you really can't blame the tree for fighting back, at least a little. The second spring saw fewer flowers than the year before and substantially less fruit. But I learned that these trees can run in production cycles, sometimes having very lean years for a particular tree or for a particular grove of trees. I noticed a grove near a creek where I do my daily walks also had a lean year that second year. And again, in the autumn, there was an early bedtime in the early autumn for the walnut trees. And then the next spring, another late leafing and another lean year for the flowers and the fruits. The trees were becoming, self-pruning. Large parts of large and small branches failed to leaf out that summer, and any storm with significant wind would produce sometimes dangerously large lumber deposits in my yard the next morning. So the trees lost their classic shape, and they started to look scraggly. The birds and the squirrels, of course, didn't care, but the neighbors started asking about the health of my trees. Large trees are a treasure as they provide shade and greening and noise suppression and animal habitat. They help break the monoculture of our immaculate lawns. They give vertical interest elements in painting the pictures outside my window. The trees in my tree wills are about as old as I am. I'm guessing they sprouted sometime between 1950 and 1980. When I got the boards from the other trees that were removed when the house was built, I counted on them the same number of growth rings as there were candles on my cake that year. So I guess I am just like those trees. Last summer, a bald eagle perched in one of our walnut trees, a monstrously huge and magnificent bird, and it left a monstrously huge and magnificent white splashy mess behind underneath when it left. This spring, 2026, there was another very late leafing out of the trees and lots of leaves, but this year near the trunks, not on the extremities of the branches. A tree guy told me that is due to a chemical called auxin that is produced in the branch tips where leaves usually sprout. That tree hormone travels back down the branches and suppresses leaf growth on the trunks. Since it was not suppressing it on the trunks, this was not a good sign. About a month ago, I noticed a large chunk of bark had fallen off one of the trees near the base. Nearly half of the diameter of the tree at the base now stood uncovered. I noticed similar debarking happening on some of the other trees, so I called a tree guy. Well, he said, we could treat them with lots of tree growth fertilizer. This dirt is really close to these to the roots here, and that can cause a problem. You do know that roots need air to breathe, right? And I didn't have the heart to tell him the woes of 3 summers ago and the adamance of the workers when they were building the house. He said, we could treat them, and that might keep the leaves going, but your trees are dying. I told him about other trees on the property, how parts of them are now parts of the house. We talked about working with walnut in the shop. We talked about juglone and squirrels and eagles and crucifixes, and we joked about self-pruning. We talked about wood being the greatest building material in the universe, how it is strong and lightweight and flexible, and that it literally grows on trees. What will happen, I asked, if we don't do anything? He said, well, they'll be dead, or mostly dead, in about 3 years. You might get parts that stay alive, but then you'll have dead or mostly dead trees in your yard. And the natural anti-rot toxins that they produce to keep the rot away will no longer be produced, so they'll start rotting in place. And eventually they will be hollow and will fall over all at once or one piece at a time, and you won't be able to control when they fall or where they fall. We talked about the trees being the same age that I am, how the tree guy got his forestry degree at Purdue, how he grew up in Indiana. We talked about how the U.S. Navy has a forest of oak trees in southern Indiana that are dedicated solely to someday rebuilding the oldest U.S. warship still in existence, the USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides. Today, as I'm typing these notes, there's a crew of 3 guys here in the yard. They are taking apart, using some very impressive technology, the 3 trees that God and nature have spent my lifetime meticulously putting together, using an hydraulic lift and ropes and pulleys and chainsaws. A team of men in hard hats and earmuffs and harnesses and steel-toed boots are following their protocol. They will work today and tomorrow, and perhaps the next day as well. The leaves and small branches are removed first. They're being shredded for mulch and such. The medium branches are being cut and piled near the firewood pile. I will be splitting them for drying, and then we'll stack them. They will likely keep us warm in the winter of 27-28, as they will be too wet this year. The largest branches and the trunks will be taken to a local sawmill. They will be cut and then dried, and then they will come back home to my shop, not 100 feet from where they grew up, and they will live on as all manner of furniture and cutting boards and wooden pegs. The scraps will become firewood, and if we keep that wood dry and the resultant projects dry as well, they will outlast me and my wife and my children and grandchildren, and they'll outlast you too, and everyone alive on the planet now. And then a stump guy will come in and grind out the stumps and make the ground ready to grow new things. And then this autumn sometime, when the leaves drop, I will go to a planting bed in front of the house, a bed that holds flowers and bushes and mulch, and I will gently dig up a volunteer 3-foot-tall walnut tree that was planted there by a squirrel or a chipmunk last year, and will put that offspring of my current trees in the spot where his ancestors once grew. And then I'll walk around and I'll pick up a few of the nuts and figure out how to germinate them for next spring. And then I'll start making bittersweet plans for what to do with all the wood that will soon be coming from the mill. And while I am doing all that, I'll be thinking about what I should be learning from all this, about how I'm like the trees and what that all means. Mulch, firewood, and furniture. That is what the trees will become. When they were alive, they were shade on a hot day. They were noise suppression. They were greenery. And like I said earlier, they were a break from our grass monoculture. Birds perched in them. Bugs made their homes there. Squirrels played in the branches. nested and raised their families there, and ate the fruits. So lots of good came from them while they were alive. We can hope to also strive to be as helpful and as giving as my trees have been. But not all that came from the trees was good, of course. We all have our downsides. Leaves were dropped in the fall and needed to be attended to. The flowers and the nuts left their juglone on the pavement, and it left a stain. People sometimes got bonked on the head by the falling nuts, or rolled an ankle, stepping on one in the yard, and the branches could fall. Self-pruning requires someone to pick up behind you, someone to clean up the mess. So some good, some bad, I guess, while they were alive, much like us, I suppose. We do some good, we do some bad. Again, I hope we can strive for more of the former and less of the latter. But what do my trees leave behind? And what will you leave behind? Mulch is the outcome of the stuff that isn't worth anything else. Grind it up, use it as ground cover. It'll disintegrate into mostly carbon dioxide and water. Even the juglone will break down and no longer be able to stain things. Ashes to ashes, as they say. You are dust, and to dust you shall return. How much of what you leave behind will simply be mulch for someone? Think of the people you leave behind. Which things will they simply leave to return to dust and ash? Which things that you leave behind will simply cover the ground and be gladly forgotten? Firewood is a material battery that stores sunlight as energy. We discussed the details of the miracle of burning wood in episode 267. The tree stores up the energy from the sun, and we get it out by just putting the log on the fire. Light and warmth come from the firewood. Of course, yes, there is a little ash left at the end of this process, too. How much light and warmth will you have left behind for people? How will they remember you? What you said, what you did, what you taught them? Will memories of you light their way? Will thoughts of you warm them with a bittersweet smile? Will they share your light and your warmth with others? Will the stories of you bring people joy? And what about lumber and furniture? Will you leave something behind that others can use and build something precious that will outlive them? Are there lessons you imparted that will be shared down through history? Have you built a metaphorical kitchen table to provide a place to share meals and human joys and sorrows? Have you built a metaphorical bench for someone to sit on and rest and recharge? Have you created true, good, and beautiful things that can be handed down to your children and your children's children, and down and down and down to the 1000th generation? And lastly, there is a descendant from my trees voluntarily growing in my front planter. What descendants are you leaving for all those you leave behind? Have you planted them where they can grow and thrive and do all the good things that they should do, like provide shade on a hot day, or quiet the noise, or make things green, or give us a break from a corrupted culture? Will metaphorical birds come to perch in your offspring? Will metaphorical squirrels play in their branches, nest there and make their homes there? Will your offspring provide oxygen for future generations, along with flowers and fruit? Will you leave descendants and a place for them to grow? Is this not what you are ultimately called to do? Are we not just like the trees? Either way, one finds lessons where they are. In the end, I think this is what I will be thinking about as I deal with the pile of firewood that must be cut and stacked, and as I put my time and effort, literally my life, into creating something true, good, beautiful, and lasting from the lumber my trees have left behind. In the meantime, seek the good, live virtuously and flourish and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.